Hi, good morning. This is the day 5 question. Okay, where do I confuse intensity of experience with depth of truth? Where do I confuse intensity of experience with depth of truth? Well, I think often in my past I've done that. You know, when you have those peak experiences, where peak means like you're vibrating on some other level, and everything just feels like open and true and resonating, and it's like you're high on life kind of feeling, where it's like, why haven't I always felt this way? And then everything, I've felt that several times, and now I have to check myself because it's like those are peaks, right? And then we have valleys, and the peaks feel like, to me, I guess the confusing part in the past is that it has felt like such a revelation that is the ultimate true state to always shoot for, right? Where it's like it sort of has invalidated my other experiences as not as good, not as desirable, not as preferable. And over time, and not that much time, like especially this past year, really reflecting on that and saying, oh, here's another peak experience, here we go again. Or in the opposite, where it's like, oh, here's another valley, or I've been in this 2-week rut where things feel dark and just unmotivated, and then it reaches some like bottom, and then I'm like, I know this feeling. Tomorrow is a new day. And sure enough, like there's something about feeling that the valleyness of the valley triggers now in my mind. It wasn't always that way. I took it, well, anyway, it triggers now in my mind this like, oh, I know it's around the corner. I've been through this enough where it's like, the day is always brighter tomorrow. Tomorrow's a new day. And it may sound cliche, but in my life, so I've had some dark valleys where it was like real dark, where you don't feel like tomorrow, there is a tomorrow, or that things are ever going to change. And now enough peaks and valleys I've gone through. It took me long enough. And they're still hard, especially the valleys. But they're still hard. But at least now it feels like, oh, this is that old thing, fun, where it feels more integrated into my daily lived experience, like to just flow through it, and hopefully more gracefully than I have in the past. But the peak experiences are the ones where it's like, that's what it's all about, and I want to share love with everybody, and I love everything, and the world is just so beautiful. And like, those are great moments, and we can't live there 100% of the time, right? I mean, maybe some people do, but I don't want to get bored of that, or treat it as insignificant because it's just the everyday thing. So I don't know. What I love about life is like the variability of all the emotions, all the experiences now, just like even the mundane, like, oh, this is just the middle of the peaks and valleys, just like a stretch of just middleness. And like now I feel like I'm trying, at least lately, to just try to have an intention each day, just to like notice just whatever I can notice in my lived experience, just like we'll try to see with fresh eyes, and in the valleys and the peaks and all the things, just like trying not to take things for granted. In my, even just driving down the same old road I go down, I've been trying to like make an effort to like look that way, like the way I never look, like what's over there. I don't know, I'm on autopilot usually. So it's taken a lot of years to like appreciate the mundane and the every moment, the in between the peaks and valleys, because the valleys were like wallowing in the emotion, and the peaks were like, yeah, everybody needs to feel this, and let me share it. And especially during spiritual awakening moments where it's like, this is what it's been all about. And then sure enough, there comes another wee. And that's called, like, moving through those cycles is called integration. Like, you're integrating all those experience into so that that middle, like, you've got the experience of both, and now they can live more harmoniously inside instead of like being like manic or something. So where it says, where do I confuse intensity of experience with depth of truth? I think the peak is what I first started with, because that felt like those intensities of like openings felt like depth of truth. Like it felt like that's true. If it feels elevated, it feels open, if it feels like pure love, that's true. But it says, where do I confuse the intensity with depth? I don't know if that's a confusion. I feel like maybe there is some fundamental universal truth in those openings, and then the energy closes back down. And then if I go into a valley, I used to feel like that was a truth as well. Like, oh, I must just like, I take it personal, but it's not. I don't think it is anymore. It's just the nature of my particular rhythms. And now there are fewer valleys. I am grateful for that. There are really a lot fewer valleys. The valleys now might be like those of like stagnancy, where I just need to shake things up a little more, get back into working out. Like if I've let stuff kind of slide where I don't feel good in my body, then I can feel like, but the depth of truth, yeah, I think that's where I used to confuse it as a personal defect. Like, oh, this is me, I'm the problem. And I feel like, no, being human is just I have really come to, just love being a messy, weird human that gets to have all the experiences of all the emotions. And I have this from my somatic experiencing training. I have a list that they gave us at one point that has a list of all the emotion words and feeling words, and they're different. And I made a note to like pull that back out and like slap it on my wall so I can look at it and be like, ooh, which one haven't I felt in a while? And how can I tap into that? And like, because it runs the gamut. It's every emotion that you could squeeze onto a piece of paper. And so there's probably hundreds. And I just think, well, yeah, we're here to experience. And it's all depth of truth, isn't it? Like the intent, to experience each emotion intensely feels like the truth of being human. Why were we given emotions to feel? Why were we given these feelings? It's funny that this question came up, and I'm probably not answering it how a lot of people would, but that's not the point of this. It's not about doing the should. It's about like how the question hits me and hits you. But there's a podcast this morning. Have you listened to the Handsome podcast with Tig Notaro and Fortune Feimster and Mae Martin? I love it to start my day in a happy place, because they are just ridiculously funny. But today's episode, they were talking about very emotional things that would make you cry, things that always get you, whether it's a movie, a song, or something. And I just loved hearing these comedians talk about how, they would well up with tears on the podcast, just talking about things. And I love that, because it just points out like these people are deeply funny, and their living they make a living making people laugh, to feel that elevated peak kind of feeling. And here they are just loving how emotional they can, like the depths of their emotion on the other side with sadness and grief and going through stuff. And I just loved I just loved them in particular talking about that, because they're the ones that are always like, yeah, be happy, laugh. So anyway, that's where this one took me. I feel like there's more here. I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, two more things came to me. One, the in my ayahuasca experience like a few years ago, obviously that was a peak experience. We did like 4 ceremonies in 7 days, and each each ceremony was its own like the intensity does not even just touch the surface of the feeling of the that going through a ceremony like that gives people, and that I felt. And even now I'm like, so many truths came to me. They were like downloads from the universe, where even today I carry them as deep truths. And I'm like, is there any confusion there? Should I really question the truth? And then that takes me to a place of, F that, it's my truth. There's no confusion in that. I feel like that intensity of the experience, maybe the intensity itself wasn't the truth, but it was like what came along with for the ride with the intensity. To me, the intensity, is it different than the truth, is what I'm trying to discern right now. And it's like the intensity of the experience. Yeah, that's what the question says. To me, it was like, I was like this. If you could see me in the pitch black, I feel like I was like tears streaming down my face, like, ah, and like download, 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 just like nonstop, where I was just like, if I feel like that's probably what I looked like there in the pitch black, listening to the Shipibo people singing the Icaros, the songs that I feel like was more medicine than the concoction itself. So to me, that whole experience, obviously very intense, and yet the doubt, like the depth of truth that was being like over, like nonstop for 8 hours a night, was like, are those one and the same? Or is the intensity different from the depth of truths? I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that that's what I experienced, and I'm grateful. So I journaled like hell to try to remember it all or capture it all. And sometimes I go back and reread it. And some of the things, like most of the things, still ring like freaking true. And other things, it was like, well, okay. Like, they were intense in the moment, but now they don't have the same resonance that they did at the time. But other things feel like they'll be like a light North Star for me for the rest of my life. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was in relationship, like with my partners over time, when I have been on more emotional roller coasters, like back when I was like pre-menopause, and had like roller coastery type cycles in a month of emotions and PMS and all that good stuff. I would seriously take people on a ride with me, like, oh my God, we need to move. Like big things. I'm like, just all of a sudden would switch to like the most important thing in my mind, was amplified based on the emotions I was feeling. I remember those moments of like, now looking back, it's like, man, that was silly. Like to take people on my own roller coaster with me, because when I was in a deep, intense emotion, whatever was popped into my head as like a fix or a solution to some feeling I was feeling, then it was like that was the truth, And now when I decouple, sitting here in this year, looking back at other years, at those times, and now decoupling the emotion, I'm far away from that emotion now, and like thinking back to like the truth that I was trying to like say, this is the truth and it's what we got to do, or whatever it was, or it was like, here's the state of our relationship. And it's like, no, those were confused at the time. So yeah, sometimes I feel like the intensity is the depth of truth, and sometimes maybe I feel like I was confusing them for being the same thing, when with some perspective now, it's like, Oh, honey. No. So I really liked this question. Yeah, thanks.